Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Doppler's Gear Garage. All right, well, great to be with you on a Saturday morning. Gosh darn it. In case we haven't met, I'm Doug, and this is Doppler's Gear Garage. We go over guitars, gear, and whatever is on your mind. Today we're going to be going over some very cool stuff around the minor pentatonic. And generally speaking, you're going to find that I'm going to start doing the lesson content at the top of the live stream. Because that way when people potentially rewatch us or kind of stumble across a rebroadcast of the live stream, the lesson content's right at the top. I will spare the main salutations other than to say, good morning, Matt King. Good morning, Brett Sackett. Good morning, Shane Wise. And good morning, Paul Richard. Great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us right at the beginning of the broadcast. I hope you are having a great Saturday. So one of the things that I have been focusing on in my own... Oh, hold on a second. John Mello, how am I feeling? You know, the funny thing is I am at the tail end of Namthrax, which got me really, really nasty. So I've got a few Sudafed here, which has kind of helped this thing. But the great thing is in the midst of being kind of not physically well, I've gotten a lot of practice time in, which is very cool. All right, I think y'all have heard me talk about something called the lawnmower effect. And if you haven't, you will a lot. And so one of the things that I love to be able to do is, as I kind of put together ways of looking at the guitar neck, is I like to kind of systematically work across the neck or up and down the neck or some combination of the two. And in this particular case, you're looking at basically two patterns of the minor pentatonic scale, noting that there's not a kind of a fingering or a fret location noted. Pour all of that, just kind of look at the neck like that. So you essentially have pattern number one. Turn down a little bit. And as well as pattern number two, starting off the second note. So hold on. There we go. Sorry. Oh, my bad. Hold on. Sorry. Let me rephrase that. Pattern number one. And if you kind of take a look at where the upper note of pattern number one is on the sixth string, and you were to skip that middle pattern, play that, that's what you're seeing on the page. So that is to say, this is kind of no man's land in between these two patterns that we're not going to be playing in the traditional way. So the deal is, if you were to just take a look at the notes in black, and then the lower set of notes, as in red, and you were to tap those guys, we'll add a little bit more gusto on that. And that basically is this little sequence of kind of, if you think about up, down, up, and that's what I call a waterfall motion. That is to say, as we ascend, we're ascending. As we descend, we're descending. And this kind of lawnmower effect is we're basically taking this, basically tap, ascending, tap, descend, tap, ascend, as in... And then when we get at the top there, we flip it around. And so again, that's just basically, so if you would just isolate the left hand part, you could just do this with hammer-ons and pull-offs. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Let me turn that down a little bit. Up, down, up, down, up, down, 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 down, up, down. Then we precede that with a tap. And then we flip it around. Proceeded with a tap. All together. All right, now, per the lawnmower effect, the idea is we're just kind of going, mowing them down. Now, you're going to see some other notes there. As in, we can tap with the right hand. Those notes. And the same idea, but we're doing a slightly different sequence. We're just doing threes. Then pull-offs. Oh, sorry. There we go. So the transition. You can end that with a false harmonic. That is, say, either tapped or just touched it against the string there. So that little spot at the end, the dismount, which I kind of blew a couple of times, is arguably the hard part because you kind of get to the very end, you stop focusing, and you're like, oh, I can do it. But that's the part you might just want to loop. There you go. All right, now, the next part, hold on, next graphic. Now, that's the hard part, where we're basically taking two patterns. So a minute ago, I talked about that middle pattern. Now what we're doing is we're playing that with those fingers. And that's the fun one. So basically what we're taking is pattern number 1 and pattern number 2 with the minor pentatonic and playing them at the same time with that kind of up, down, up. Ascending and then down, up, down. Descending, and we're starting with the tap. And that is the teaching portion for today. All right, per the concept of the lawnmower effect, there are a couple of things that I'm doing that in some ways are truncating some of the things that we could do. For those of us that have been along, there we go, let's get over here. Hang on a second, there we go. Armando Diaz, what's going on? Good morning to you, my friend. Good morning, good morning, good morning. All right. And Albert, what's happening, my man? Let's roll the garage door up. Robert Valdez. In any case, it's tapping thing. Where to start? Well, the pentatonic is a great place to start, which is why we started there. All right, Anil, good morning to you, my friend. Great to see you. Hello, hello. Welcome to the broadcast. Mike Rand, good morning. Just in case you guys missed it, we just kind of had this pentatonic tapping thing, which you can catch in reverse. One of the things I'm going to be doing moving forward, I've actually kind of made a little laundry list of goodies, but I had some, as is kind of typically the case on a Saturday morning, a couple of things that just didn't come together on the text side, but I had an outline of things that I wanted to do that we're not going to get to all of them. But starting with the lesson part, again, the advantage of that is anybody who wants to come back and rewatch this, you can do that. So There were basically, I'm just going to do a quick recap. There were a couple of different things that we did. Then we and then what was I going? And if you're not a tapping person, well, then have at it, and there'll be something else next week. Tony, what's going on, my man? Thanks so much. Great to see you. Hello. All right, now one of the other things that was on my mind, and by the way, people, a big part of what we like to do here is answer questions. So I come into this with kind of my own little laundry list of ideas, but at the same time, this is an interactive thing because we're hanging out. This is the social part of social media. And I encourage you to grab your guitars. I recently, so one of the things that was on my list here that did not happen is a GGG link doc, which I will be creating in the future. And it will be one singular Google Doc that will be public or not, that allows people to access all kind of, it'll be a jumping off point with, for example, links to a Dropbox file for like this, so on and so forth. So the ability to kind of have these kind of by the date and just a brief description enables me to have one doc that I just update on a weekly basis when there are assets to add to that. But the idea is it kind of means that there's one place you can bookmark, can always come back to, and things will be linked off of that. In this particular case, one of the things you've heard me talking about is 15-minute fundamentals. And I am furiously working on this course. And in the process of this, I've really kind of discovered a number of things about my practice and so on. There we go. The first question of the day. Is that the Badlander 25? It is. And I love this amp. So we are right now on the middle channel. We're not even on all the way. All the way gained up. And the other thing is, part of what we're going to be doing a little bit later is talking about in the recording process. It's a great video that happened on the Gibson Gear Guide. With Dinesh and Joe Bonamassa, where Joe Bonamassa was talking about every player should be used to playing through all the different bands of I think he said a 32-band graphic EQ. I've got a 28-band one over there. And hang on a second. So, questions. By the way, just in case you're new, questions are the name of the game here. So, so the Sustainiac technically is only active on the bridge pickup. And this is the Sustainiac unit that basically is a kind of a reverse speaker. So it's sending electromagnetic impulses out to the string, kind of like a speaker, but it's creating a kind of it's pinging the string, if you will. And it's only active in the bridge position. So when I'm in the neck, for example, That's just kind of functioning like a traditional single coil. But a narrow aperture hum canceling single coil, right? Number 4 position. You know, kind of the middle and the neck. The middle position. Kind of a telly kind of a vibe. And with my volume up, the number 2 position. Kind of more of a Stratty in the number 2 position then. And then kind of more of a very classic Gibson vibe. Sans whammy bar. And these are all DeMarzios with the exception of that, which is the Sustainiac pickup, which I don't know what they use as their kind of basses, but I love this guitar. All right, so Jerry, good morning. Great to see you, my friend. Hello, hello, hello. This guitar, yes, there is some sustain, especially so. And the Gary installed the circuit to answer your question, and the deal is this push pull. Hang on, let me get rid of the overlay there in a second. Go bye. Come on. Or take your time. Overlay, go bye-bye. All right, hang on. I can get over on the other side here. Boy, the overlay that came to stay. So basically, that's a push knob on the, if you will, traditional bridge pickup tone pot, and then the neck pickup tone pot. Fundamental. And then the octave. But sometimes it'll go. You'll hear that major third start to come in. Some people describe that as a major 10th. I think of it as a major third up an octave. And yes, Gary Brower, this instrument is a result of Gary Brower's ingenuity and kind of a lot of playtime, and it's really kind of the perfect guitar for me. Thank you for asking. Okay. So the deal is, one of the topics I wanted to talk about today was on the Gibson Gear Garage. There's a video with Dinesh and Joe Bonamassa. And Joe Bonamassa is talking about using a 32-band graphic EQ. And the deal is, I'm going to come back to the chat in just a minute, just kind of getting used to hearing what each one of those faders does. And his comment was about getting the guitar to live in a particular spot. And one of the things that I say frequently, and is on my list here to make sure I say today, is that the tone is in your hands. So I'm kind of over on the cleanest of 3 channels, but got some hair on it. The drive is actually, the gain is all the way up. And I'm going to be in the number 2 pickup selected. And let's see if the gods of Pro Tools are going to be good to us today. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a Pro Tools session, and I'm going to play along with it. And when I switch over to the other camera, you're going to get a chance to watch what's happening with the right hand. Now, why am I doing this? Why does it matter to you? First of all, if you're not in the process of recording actively, you're missing out on one of the best opportunities to document where you are today. So as a contrast to where you can be tomorrow, and in the process of listening to where you're at today, you can identify the things that you're doing well, and you can identify the things that are weaknesses. And kind of in the midst of this lawnmower effect concept, and in the process of working on 15-minute fundamentals, which for those of you that have been here, thank you, Griffin. In the midst of this is that the concept is if you can just spend 15 minutes a day just kind of keeping that basic maintenance going, it's a great way to not feel like you're losing what you got. I know that you know what I'm talking about because we all go through it. But last week I took some feedback, and I love feedback because it allows me to build a better course. And conceptually, people were like, give us some adaptations where there's some different things. So basically, the course has become a super course. And basically, it's going to be a series of 7 different types of workouts, including one that is just the core workout, which is, as the name, 15-minute fundamentals. There's one basic core group of exercises that if you just have 15 minutes every day, you're not going to feel like you're falling away from the instrument. In the process of that, the lawnmower effect is taking each one of the different types of ideas and kind of figuring out how can we slice and dice whatever concept it is across the neck, up and down the neck, diagonally, whatever it is, such that you're literally just kind of, it's kind of like corn on the cob, right? That sort of approach. And as straightforward as it is, that's not really how things are traditionally taught. So in the midst of all of that, I've been also kind of paying attention to things that are going on and working on my own playing and thinking a lot about the right hand. One of the things that, generally speaking, if you want to have maximum control, bonus exercise for the day. There we go. The idea is with the left and the right hand, they're working together. They're working together to make it such that when you're fretting one note, for example, on the 6th string, the fleshy part of the 1st finger is muting the 5th through 1st strings. When we move over to the 5th string, the tip of the 1st finger is muting the 6th string, and the fleshy part of the 1st finger. And some of you have seen me do this before, but I'm sharing it now because it's important. Then we move down to the 4th string. The tip of the 1st finger is always, hey, Dan, what's going on? Great to see you, my friend. I still owe you that email. I have not forgotten. The tip of the 1st finger, which will always be the case once we're past the 6th string, will be touching against the lower adjacent string. That is when I'm on the 5th string, it's muting the 6th string. When I'm on the 4th string, it's muting the 5th string. 3rd string mutes the 4th. 2nd string mutes the 3rd. 1st string mutes the 2nd. And in turn, the fleshy part will always mute the upper adjacent strings. And in turn, the right hand, once I get to the 4th string, is now going to be muting 2 strings and all those below from there. That is to say, when I'm on the 4th string, the right hand is muting the 6th string. So that is to say, when I'm playing the 4th string, the tip of the 1st finger is muting the 5th string, and the flesh of the 1st fingers muting the treble strings to the right hand is just muting the low E string. As I move to the 3rd string, the tip of the 1st finger is going to mute the 4th string, and the fleshy part is going to mute the 2nd and 1st. The right hand is now going to be muting the 6th and 5th, such that if I strum all 6 strings, besides a harmonic there, that's the only string that you're going to ring. And this is just such an integral part of keeping the guitar silent. Now, if you're going to do the thumb around the top of the neck, it's a different dealio, because the thumb can kind of begin to play part of that process, right? But the same concept is holding true. So my right hand's going to be following my left hand. All right. Good. Now, in terms of the focus of the right hand, which is really one of the things I wanted to talk about as it relates to the deal is if I'm kind of playing along here, soft, hard. The other thing is that I have a tendency, like in a conversation, if you listen to the human voice, that the cadence goes up, goes down. And that way you're thinking about the envelope of notes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the track, and God willing, Pro Tools is not just going to have a giant pisser in front of us. And I'm going to mute myself. But what I want you to kind of be focusing on is kind of what I'm doing with the right hand. And most importantly, think about how it impacts what you're doing. So I'm in the midst of, in addition to developing the course material for the 15-minute fundamentals super course, is working on both finishing my vocal and instrumental albums. So it actually means that in my process, I'm actually looking at different amps and different guitars and thinking about sound. So as we begin to have this tone talk, if you will, first of all, let me ask you a question. How about that? Get to the right window. Ladies and gentlemen. All right. So I'm gonna jump in on this very quickly, because that fits into the midst of this. I just got a pedal pawn, the Cowboy, best SRV TS I have used, and I've used many. I will keep that in mind. I love that. I've been hearing about pedal pawn, and I do not have any of their pawn shop story pedals yet, but that from your hands and your ears, I appreciate that. So thank you for that. Question to the group. Number one, first of all, how many of you are actively recording something, anything? And if so, what is it? Oh, awesome. Hey, I got my Pia Plect. Awesome. Dude, Plec is amazing. All right. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So Dan and anybody and everybody, let me know what it is that, you're kind of working on. And so in the midst of where I am, I'm trying. Okay. Then this is specifically, oh, awesome. A killer. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So here's the thing is that there are a couple of things. So one of the things that's valuable to me to share with you is kind of what I've learned in the course of a week. Again, this Joe Bonamassa video that he did, and I will put together a doc for today and I'll post it somewhere. But the goal was to get it done, but there was I was getting a second computer and Pro Tools running up on that second computer, and I had an interface issue that's a software issue. So it just decided it wasn't going to do what I needed to do. So I brought the Pro Tools session over here. But the idea is that when you're picking most of the people that hang out here, there we go. Oh, my word. Okay. So here's the thing, Shane. It did not happen for this week, but over yonder and on, by the way, the sad story of the week was that pedal board case there. Over the course of my week, I do a number of different things, very music focused. I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. And in the process of that, there's always this gear discovery. So there was going to be a feature that kind of ended up turning out into a disaster called 5-minute pedal board for an acoustic gig. And we'll probably talk about that a little later in the show. But the point being is that I went to bring a looper. So if you don't have a recording setup, but you can just either have a looper on hand or go get one, do so. It didn't make it to this week's show, but it's probably going to be next week. And I use the word probably with seasoning. But different things you can do with a looper. Near and dear to my heart, we're going to talk about a range of things, and chances are I'm going to start sharing things via that dock that you can, especially if you've got one of the Boss loopers, you can push WAV files, 44.1 WAV files, to that looper to have to practice along with. It pertains to this recording conversation as well, but we'll get to that when we get to it. So the first thing about most of the people that hang out with me, as you kind of look around, you can see there's a bunch of different guitars in the room. Finding the right guitar, I kind of went, well, okay, what's the one thing that I can do to kind of find the right guitar? I'm going to grab it because I want you to hear kind of where I started and why. Because again, most of us have enough different guitars that one of the challenges is like, all right, this is the guitar that's in my hands, but I want to play this particular thing. How do I know that the thing I'm going to play, I've got the right guitar? So acoustically, this guitar, John Coonaberry, the guy that is the mix engineer and recording engineer on both these albums, was over here kind of hanging out with me, and we were talking about recording acoustic guitars. But he kind of spotted this guitar, and he immediately said, "You should be using that." And obviously, it's kind of some Tele Super Strat type of deal. I guess I should say Stratty Super Tele type of deal. But it has the skank, and I know you can hear it up there. Find out acoustically, all on its own, is the guitar the right candidate for the part? That's the moral of that story. And very quickly, I was like, oh, this is really cool. But an interesting thing happened in the process of this, and this is why it's really important to document your process. Because in the midst of coming back to Mr. Doppler's iPhone is here, to this, I can come back to, hello, come on. You were playing this morning. All right, fine, be that way. Hang on, give me just a moment. Seriously. This is the song. Oh, shut up. There we go. This part right here. So the neat thing is I've got probably 4-ish versions of this song, and it's evolved. And in the process of that, sometimes you come back to the original version and kind of go, I lost something along the way in the midst of finding all the things that happen as this song evolves. Kind of go, oh, I need to get back to that. Now, the interesting thing is that I think that originally happened on a Tele, but getting over here. So part of it is I've been on this journey of getting the fingers. And incorporating the pick and the fingers. Which is kind of, as I kind of got back to the original part and I could find my way there, I was like, oh, that's pretty close to it. The point being, and I see some comments in there, and I know that we had talked, Robert, about the right hand, getting those together, so mental note made. I'm going to pull up Pro Tools here, and I'm going to mute the audio here, the talking mic, and hopefully I'll remember to unmute it. But you can hear, first of all, one, when I went acoustically to pick the right guitar, that Tele Strat thing was a really good choice. However, as I kind of sat down, this guitar happened to be plugged in, and I started playing. I was like, right, a big part of the evolution of the part happened on this guitar in the number 2 position. I was like, oh, right. The great thing about having documented all of that is not only is there some kind of faint and distant memory, I can come back to all that stuff and kind of go, oh, that piece of that version of it and that piece of that version, I evolved as a musician and I learned things. Had I not documented and bounced what I had done to have a 2-track mix, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to play, and again, per the tone is in your hands. I just kind of want to watch you. I'm going to play a little bit of rhythm, and I'm also going to kind of probably play a little bit of leady stuff. But I want you to really kind of think about finding the part that sits right in the mix. So you'll hear me kind of playing around the drums and the bass, and my guitar is a little hot in the mix. But as you kind of watch me adjust what I'm doing, just kind of listen to kind of how I'm sitting against the drums and the bass. Let's see if Pro Tools is going to be friendly. All right, Pro Tools was friendly this morning. Thank you very much. Okay, let's get back to the A cam. Come on, there we go. Hey. All right, so first of all, I think one of the things that we can all agree with, at least I'll just raise my hand, is there are times as I'm playing, I'm like, oh, I'm playing the same thing over and over. Moving the right hand around, whether it's with the fingers in the pick, just the pick, is one of the ways to kind of open the gate to like, hey, let me try something over here. And as soon as I start to move my right hand around, I start to think about doing something different than I'd done over there. Now, ironically, a big part of kind of my picking technique development is all about being really close to the bridge, to the right hand, as on top of those things. On top of the strings, like so. And those of you that missed this, a little early I did. And generally speaking, as I'm kind of muting the strings, I want to keep the right hand with my core technique close to the bridge. For that reason right there, right? Right where it just kind of begins to be on top of the strings and keeps them muted. So that general place that I want to pick, and also there's a guy named Bernth. I've been taking, I'm part of Bernth's online lessoning because I've been kind of preparing to do 15-minute fundamentals. I've gone out and take a look at all the different players and teachers that are out there, and Bernth is this kind of wild Austrian who's just moved to Los Angeles, shredder. And one of the things that my big takeaways with my right hand has really been working on, that there's a lot of rumble that the pick gets. When you're down on the bottom string, especially in that kind of middle-y position. So I've been really working on, per one of the online lessons that was a freemium, a free lesson where he was talking about moving the right hand closer to the bridge so you don't get as much pick noise. So I kind of took that to heart and have been really focusing really getting that right hand and that string transition right there, getting that guy super tight. And as an end result, I've kind of been looking at all the different places that I can be really working on the transitions with my right hand and baking these concepts into 15-minute fundamentals. But the point being, Bobby, to your question, so I see a couple more questions, so let me come back to those as I see them coming in, or as I don't see them coming in, but come back to them. So there is a certain kind of noise that you're going to get that's in there, but extra noise so I've really gotten very missional about getting that right hand together. And the thing is, I've got I don't have a huge amount of gain. So it's naked enough that you can really kind of hear when there's if there's any pooping search. And then there's also, with this kind of a tone, there's always a certain amount of, when you're playing with a higher gain setting, there's a certain amount of compression that happens. Where the pick noise kind of goes away a little bit, that on a cleaner setting, the pick noise doesn't have a tendency to disappear as much. Bobby, you asked about getting the left hand and the right hand together. So let me see if I can find that comment. There we go. Hold on. There we go. My left hand is slower than my right hand. Remedies. Absolutely. This is the most golden launch metronome app. Come on, Siri. You can do it. No. Siri says no. Launch metronome app. Please. Fine. Siri has obviously not had her coffee this morning. 80. All right, so this is the magic number. The great thing about 80 is that you've got basically, well, hang on. You got quarters, eighth note triplets, 16th notes, and 16th note triplets. It's a great tempo to just build whatever speed you need to have. So again, Bobby's quote-unquote challenge is my left hand is slower than my right hand. So Bobby, I'm going to wager that I'm older than you are. First of all, this is about the right time of the day. Let's just do a little something here. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to raise them up. California. The funny thing is, by force of habit, there's coffee right by where I am. But Griffin Gaines, thank you very much. This I realize should be living in the kitchen, but this is one of the great bags of coffee Griffin has kindly sent along. Thank you so much. It warms heart every time I look over the room and I see it here instead of upstairs, but it always makes me feel good. So this is a Christmas gift. It's kind of got that Christmas red from Louisiana. Thank you, Griffin. Let me know where it is that you're drinking and what it is you're drinking. For me, I'm actually kind of finishing up my pizza and an Optavia shake. Getting back into shape after NAM. So the deal is, the right hand and the left hand. The metronome is the best thing. So I'm going to use this to kind of jump into a couple of things, and we'll come back to the recording thing in a moment. I didn't get a chance to take a photo here because Melissa's out of town today. She comes back tonight. I'm going to borrow her phone. And one of the things in one of the future shows, I'm going to show the little space in my room, my bedroom, that has become my bedroom practice spot. And I'm speaking to you. It's really good to have a spot where this thing that's in front of me that is constantly nagging me with messages and things to do and all of that, where you can sit, if possible, and not have that going on. I really value that space. It's in my bedroom. I kind of keep the guitar kind of stuck up between the wall. Actually, I have a basically identical V without all the trimmings on it. And that guitar has now become my practice guitar. And so pretty much I live at 80 BPM 90% of the time right now. And what I'm doing, as you kind of saw there, is that as you're kind of thinking about, come on, let's get you back over here. Come here. Thought about this guy. I mean, let's try that. Eighth notes. Eighth note triplets. 16 notes. Note triplets, not necessarily executed brilliantly, but the idea is between all of those subdivision variations, it's a great tempo to be able to, first of all, just kind of just go, hey, just get our left and our right hand synced per this diagram. Hang on, there we go. Let's say I'm playing pattern number 1 right there. The black notes, if you will. Just get those guys nice and tight. Eighth note triplets. Sixteenth notes. And then 16th note triplets, which I don't think I was quite ready to do yet. And that's one of the things that I'm working on, is just identifying. The great thing about using a single tempo like that and playing with different subdivisions allows you to identify, okay, 16th note triplets at 80 BPM. It's just a little tiny bit. And this is one of the other things about kind of the lawnmower effect, is determining where your strengths and your weaknesses are. For me, single string is much better, and pairs of strings is one of the things that I'm really working on, kind of quote-unquote acing, because I realize how important that is. One of my weaknesses is, instead of playing sequences, across the neck, I'm better at that than playing just straight across the neck and back. So that's one of the areas that I'm working on. So in the midst of the lawnmower effect, identifying your strengths and weaknesses. And what's great about a tempo like that is it really allows you to kind of go, okay, 8th notes, got it. 8th note triplets, yes. 16th notes, 16th note triplets, no, okay, I need some work there. That's where what you can then do is go, okay, well, if I'm not able to do it at 16 note triplets at 80 BPM, you bump it down to 8th note triplets at 80, 85, 90, 95, and you go from there. And that way you're just kind of bumping it up. And you just continuously work on it, and you make some notes and document kind of where you're at. But the great thing about the 80 BPM is that it allows you, again, to kind of outwork all those different subdivisions. And by the time I'm totally comfortable with my 16th note triplets at 80 BPM, most of the stuff in between is going to really be outworked, which is very important. And having a strategic approach to that. So if you just do that with all the different things, and again, there are different types of, in the midst of quote unquote the lawnmower effect, there's the linear part of it, there's the lateral part of it, right? So kind of really just kind of going, hey, if I'm working on the lateral lawnmower, that's great. Oh, I like that. The linear lawnmower, I love consonants because I do. All right, so the deal is that really allows you to have a very methodical approach to that. Now, one of the other things is that a lot of players, a kind of addendum to that is, well, what about the working between legato and alternate picking? You can do an exercise like that. So that's just basically the bottom two strings of each of the 3 note per string modes. And when I get to minor, if I played the minor scale, I would start stretch 1, 2, 3, stretch 1, 2, 3, because the next things are stretch 1, 2, 4, stretch 1, 2, 4, and then move that up, stretch 1, 2, 4, and then 1, 2, 4. And that guy, I would suggest fingering it like that. That doesn't mean, now interesting addendum of that, when I end up on the top 2 strings, I will finger that 1, 3, 4. However, that's for a very specific reason. If I cruised across that guy, but I start this guy, so on and so forth. All right, that should help. Okie dokie. We were talking a little bit about recording here. Okay, good. So the looper conversation, Shane, I'm really glad that you brought that up. So one of the things that I also didn't get a chance to go to, and I have never used the looper function in my Helix, but who was it that asked me? One of my students has a Helix. And then I saw a question come in, so give me just a moment. That where are all the different loopers that we've got easy access to? If you live inside Helix, being able to take advantage of that. Part of my research is as follows, is the great thing about the Boss looper pedals, small or large, is you can push audio files to them. They need to be in 44.1 kilohertz and 16 bit. So there's a very specific format that it needs to be in if you're going to bounce it from your DAW. But the great thing is you can bounce stuff to your looper pedal and just have it on your pedal, so you could take it anywhere you might need to go. The advantage of this is as follows. Say you've got a little baby practice amp that's next to where your practice amp is in your rehearsal space, but you don't want to drag your computer down there. You go into the power amp in of your little practice amp, kind of probably bypassing the preamp section on purpose, and you're just using the power amp section and turning on the looper, and it, depending on where the power amp section is in relation to the master volume, the volume may be at 10, so you just want to back off the volume, but then you can just dedicate that to, and then play along with that, and kind of have that looper anywhere you need to go. It's a hugely convenient way to get there. So yes, the Helix does have a looper, and I need to figure that out. All right, Nitin, trying to record some Doppler'S. Now, there we go. There's nothing on the market for 24-bit 48K except for the Zoom R12. It's 16 bits. Too bad for doing serious, too bad for doing half serious work. All right. Oh, sorry. Is 16 bits too bad for doing? First of all, 16 bits is fine. Your average human being will never hear the difference between 16-bit, 24, 32. They're just not. However, I've got a couple Zoom units upstairs, and I don't remember what the call letters are on them, but it is a viable way, and there's a certain amount of, like, as I mentioned a moment ago, kind of the idea of bouncing something to a looper. At the point that you're tethered to a computer, you're tethered to that thing. The little Zoom units I've got a smaller one and a larger one, but as I recall, they are actually both of them are audio interfaces, but as I recall, one of them may have a little storage card, which means you're going to fill that thing probably right away. However, if you have a computer that you can go back to and dump stuff to, or use that as kind of a little looper thing where you have the ability to set up multiple tracks or something, which again is one of the advantages of being able to use a looper. It's a huge advantage. So let me do a little bit more research there. Eric, Andrew, Stevie Ray Vaughan, good to see you, my friend. Long time no see. All right, to get started, if you're on a PC platform, Audacity is a free app that offers a lot of features to facilitate recording. Just need a simple AI audio interface, by the way. That's excellent advice. Thank you, Albert. I live almost exclusively in a Mac world, so that is well received advice. Thank you. Stringing my new Ibanez 27 fret while listening to you. Good morning, Tony Lucchese. It's too bad people can't share like a photo in the thread here. They have it for Mac OS too. Awesome. So one of the other things that's happening in my world, just since we're on the recording conversation. All right, hang on a second, and I'm almost caught up on the list here. Brooks Lundy, what's going on? Great to see you, my friend. Okay, so I've become friends. First of all, I'm very friendly with the folks at Universal Audio. I love their gear. The funny thing is, if you could see, there are literally 3 Apollo twins on my desktop here. I had a software issue where I did a thing in Vegas a year ago, and to be able to run Logic only wanted to run on the most recent Mac OS. Just this whole flipping nightmare that kind of got introduced to my system. I'm a little pissed at the Logic folks because it's had some the Apple people, if you will. There's been some downstream stuff, not the least of which I think is what's happened is in the process of upgrading the OS on my laptop, so it would work with the only version that would run with Logic, which is what all the sessions came to me in. It hosed my Universal Audio hardware or software, and literally this morning I kind of grabbed a second interface to make sure there wasn't a problem with the interface that's hooked up to this thing. And sure enough, now it's on a software infinite download loop, simply because in this room I don't have great Wi-Fi. All that to say, as soon as you introduce a computer, there will be drama. Not if, just when. So just know that. However, once you have a system set up, in fact, John Kuhneberry, he had Pro Tools like 3-4 versions back, and he said, look, once it's running, just leave it. Don't change it. If you can, don't upgrade your OS. Don't upgrade to the latest version of the software. When it's working, doing what you need it to do, especially if it's on a computer that's just used for your production, when and where possible, leave it as is. This is augmented by the fact that Universal Audio has their audio interfaces that are also the plug-in platform in terms of power that's interfacing with Pro Tools. So I'm not only using the interface to get into Pro Tools, I'm using the plugins inside Pro Tools. So it's kind of got little mitts wrapped around. And because I love the sound of their effects so much, I am totally hooked. So the point being, the good folks at Focusrite have two interfaces that are here that I'm going to be doing a video or two for. And what's neat about them is they're kind of software independent. So it means you can run your native Pro Tools plugins, or now Universal Audio has plugins that you don't need their interfaces or their hardware to run. The point being is that once you start opening that can of worms, there are a series of decisions that you need to make. Judging by the fact I have 3 Apollo twin interfaces and 1 Apollo 8 interface in front of me, I am well into the Universal Audio world and love all the things that their stuff do. Last week I was kind of beating up on their pedals because they don't have MIDI, but as I pointed out, well, there they are on my board because I love the sounds of them. I desperately wish they had MIDI, but one of the things, again, quoting John Coonaberty, one of the things that he said he and Joe have had a tendency to do in the studio is not beat sync the delays, which I thought was very fascinating. Now, why? Especially if you come from the church world, would you not want to beat sync your delays? And his point was like, look, if there's some sort of thing where the drums are doing some different subdivision, or God forbid, the drums or the bass player kind of lean a little bit in the time, now all of a sudden you start to get this weird flamming of sorts in the time between where the delays are sitting and where the band's sitting. And if the guitar player moves slightly differently in the time, so on and so forth. So generally, there are a couple of spots, and I think he said the magic number, 360 is probably a really good place in terms of a BPM. My SD 3000, oh, fine, a little show and tell. There you go. So this guy right here is a vintage SDE 3000, upside down, no less. Looks the same right side up, except it's upside down, and then it's right side up. But I kept it at 360 because it's just kind of, it's long enough but short enough to kind of sit in a spot where you don't, it just creates ambience and so on and so forth. And generally the same thing is true, although I made some adjustments in terms of the sound design. Come on, there we go. For this particular, I wanted to go for something a little bit shorter for that. But the delay time, rather than setting it by BPM and then kind of every time you go into the track and setting it that way, I have a tendency to just kind of let it live at a particular BPM and keep it there. I do have a tendency to have the left and the right side have a subdivisional relationship, which is a little strange. That if you think of your BPM, for those of you that don't speak crazy delay language, and obviously I'm going to do one of these on delays. Basically, you got your pulse, and you have the common thing you'll hear people chug it, where you go like this, and so the second of each of those, you go, but you get this little delay thing going, chicka, chicka, chicka. That basically you get there by playing a dotted eighth note, and you tap in quarter notes, chicka, 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 chicka. That's how you get that little syncopation thing. So the idea is, traditionally what I will do is I'll do a quarter note on one side and a dotted eighth on the other. But those are relational to each other, but ironically, I won't sync that to the BPM of the session, which seems very strange, but still the delays kind of have a relationship to one another. Strange to do that, but it makes sense. Harry Truman was president when I was born. Who was president when I was born? Gosh darn it. All right. Sipping my hooch tea along with you. All right, love that. All right, good. Getting caught up here. All right, does the FRX... So that's a really great question. So I'm going to be really frankly honest, because last week I kind of beat up a little unfairly on the UA pedals about the fact that they don't have MIDI, which it still is honestly, and it's truthfully really annoying, because it would allow me to do... Well, juxtaposed to what I just said about letting things sit exactly where they are, and just kind of letting them sit in the time, that's great. But one of the things that I am feeling called to do, for example, with this, if I get rid of that long reverb, go by. I'm going for a couple of different sounds. Now, this right here, by the way, is one of the other things that's also, and I checked this, inside the golden reverb pedal. Is the EMT 140 reverb. That is a gorgeous reverb. So that's also in the pedal. So generally, I would be inclined to use one or the other. But the challenge of not being able to MIDI means if I want to change presets, I not only have to change something, using my main MIDI controller, then I also have to step on the pedal. The world doesn't come to an end, but it's inconvenient in the framework of a larger rig. And the pedals aren't cheap. However, that sound... One of my other favorite reverbs is the Lexicon 224, which is also in there. So the ability to have both those inside that golden pedal right there, it's a big deal. All right, gosh darn it. All right, good. Excellent. Santa Rosa, New Mexico. Good morning, my friend. Great to see you. Presets, Bing Bang, close to the 280-92. Exchange. Okay. Good. Screenshot taken. All right, what did I miss? All right, sorry. So getting back to Griffin's great question. The FRX is not perfect. It's really good. So I'm going through an internal battle pretty much on a weekly basis. The thing about the way the FRX is made is really, if you want to pull up on the bar, which is really one of my favorite things to be able to do, it just doesn't quite do it because of the limitations of actually not having a traditional springs in the back fulcrum tremolo. Of all the things that it does, it didn't have to do any routing. I could literally take this off and you would never know it was on the guitar. The other thing that I did was, you can see the bass plate here. I reached out to him. This guitar has obviously got this gold theme. I have mixed a combination of shiny and patina, but, well, whatever. It's still gold. From afar, you probably don't really notice. But I asked him, do you make a black bass plate that I could buy on its own? because normally the bass plate is this big kind of hulking thing, and it really looks bigger on the guitar than you really notice with this. And so they did. So they shipped me one of these black bass plates that I used in combination with the gold thing. So you really only see that, but literally there is all this other stuff hanging out over here. Because of the way this is constructed, there's a little kind of ball that juts into the side of the tremolo. And to get it to kind of have a center detente point, that ball kind of stops the tremolo. But in terms of being able to pull up on the bar and push down on the bar, it just didn't want to kind of sit at that center point. And in turn, with the nut, which is a traditional nut, we were trying a bunch of things to just try to get it to sit in tune. Chances are, and we left this little plate on here, but we ended up actually cutting an actual nut on there and cutting into the neck there. But initially, we started attacking here to go, well, is that where the problem is? We ultimately identified to really flog the way that I flog on this thing, it just wasn't going to allow us to pull up on the bar. So the answer is I'm not 100% sure if, had we decided at that point to just make it so it only pushes down, if cutting the wood here on the neck here really was the deal. There is actually another Floyd Rose that's shown up from Floyd Rose that is either going to go on this guitar or kind of the hot swappable backup. I'm ever so slightly cautious about changing the tone on my number one guitar because this guitar, as I kind of pointed out a minute ago, has some things that it does that are that are uniquely this guitar. I played one of Gary works on Neil Sean's guitars, and I had permission to play one of Neil's V's before and after I got the Floyd. I don't think it's going to make that big a difference, but chances are I'm going to end up putting a regular Floyd on the other one, hearing the before and the after, and then probably putting a regular Floyd, drilling the back, putting springs on it, and then being able to flog like a lunatic on this guitar. So to answer your question, I don't know. We did determine that it was one of the things that we could do to help the guitar stay in tune better. It doesn't stay in tune perfectly, but it stays in tune well enough for rock and roll that I love it. I hope that answers the question in a slightly non-committal way. All right. Good. Logic broke input monitoring on a recorded track in the latest version. Like I said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And this is one of the crazy things about some of these things. If you're chasing the latest version, yeah. All right. Here's something I'm working on I think would be useful. Okay, there's... I can't... hold on a second. So I actually can't click on that, and I'm afraid what's going to happen if I get an audio loop here. So I will come back to that, hopefully. And I can't even select that the way I can look at chat here. So that's a great question. So first of all, the answer is going to be yes-ish. The hell does that mean? If I plug into a mic pre, and it's one brand's mic pre and then another brand's mic pre, there is stuff in between your input and that output that's going to affect the tone. It's going to affect, most importantly, on the guitar. And you know what? It's a great question. Ah, okay. So one of the things that we're going to be doing, and it's probably going to be next week, but it might need to be the week after, because I really, as we do these, first of all, there's a thing called America's Test Kitchen. I don't watch it much, but Melissa, my wife, has told me about it, and they do these different cooking experiments, and everything's very scientific. And it's one of the things that I'm wanting. You're going to slowly see me, and I promised I wasn't going to talk about it, but I'm talking about it. I'm going to be kind of raising the bar of the sorts of things that I do on the show so that it feels more intentional. I love the organic nature of the questions, but also, like at the top, I'm like, hey, we're going to do a lesson thing right at the top, so in case you want to come back to it, it's there. But the looper thing, one of the things that you could do with a looper is record just a raw guitar part. Record that guitar part into one audio interface, into your DAW, then use the other audio interface into the same DAW, level match them, and then A/B back and forth. In particular, you want to be listening for that is, say, harmonic information is going to reveal the trebly stuff. And you might actually probably a good idea to go, or maybe go, and then and put them on the timeline staggered between the two different interfaces. That is, say, you put that into your looper. You record the looper through the different audio interfaces, and then you stagger the playback on the DAW, so you're going back and forth between the two. And you go, can you hear a difference in the way that it translates the harmonics as well as the bottom end, as well as the any kind of flubby, kind of palm muty stuff. And that way you're getting a chance to kind of check it across the harmonic spectrum, because I can almost assure you one of those things or something like that, or when you play a chord, there's the fundamentals, but there's also this harmonic overtone thing happening when you're playing with distortion, where there's more than just that note, that note, that note. That is, if I recorded this note, this separately, and then played the whole chord, this is going to sound different than all of that played at one at a time. So it is probable that each one of those audio interfaces is going to have its own little sonic signature. The Focusrite stuff sounds great. And, there are two interfaces that they sent. One that's kind of the most feature-rich, budget-friendly one, and then one that's got 8-ins and, all sorts of fancy-pants stuff. And the idea is each one kind of represents another path into the recording system. I can tell you this morning, as I was fussing around with my UA stuff, I'll tell you, again, one of the great things is, usually when I'm doing videos, you get the slightly tamed version of me, because there's stuff you can't say in a YouTube video that you can say in a situation like this. Because I don't have great audio, because I don't have great Wi-Fi down here, I'm still waiting for this download to get here so I can actually see if it's a a kind of a software firmware issue. And it's very frustrating for those of us that have, first of all, if you serve at a church and have some satellite location where you're trying to grab a Wi-Fi signal to get stuff done, or you have a rehearsal space that's off somewhere in some remote part of town, you're like, I have no signal here, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So the ability to kind of have this other stuff going on in the midst of it can be very frustrating. So I'm trying to figure out a way as effectively as a UA endorser to honor my love for so many of the things they do right, but also say, look, the Focusrite stuff, what's cool about it is it's plug and play. It just works. And I really thought this morning, and it was kind of, today was not the day to do it, I was just grabbing the Focusrite interfaces, doing that. But because I had my UA plugins on this track, just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. So it's an interesting thing. Good morning, Raphael. Great to see you, my friend. Bring the thunder. Not sure that was thunder, but it was something. All right, gosh darn it. Good morning. We got snow. Holy cow. Michael, good morning. Greetings to you, my friend. Hello, hello, hello. It did. Okay, hold on a second. It did. Hold on. What did I miss? I missed something. All right. The Motu M6 is pretty good, too, by the way. Has potentiometers for gain instead of rotary encoders, which I abhor. Well, aren't you the brainiac? So this is a very interesting thing. So, excuse me. So this right here is a rotary encoder. It has no notching. This no, I'm not going to do that with this guy because I've got my magic settings. Imagine I had a pedal and you got a potentiometer, right? So that is actually turning some mechanical piece of something that's doing something. Over here, out of frame, there was, if I can find it, it's up on top of, where is my nanocortex? There we go. Give me a second. Grabbing nanocortex, this is important, it matters. Nanocortex, come home. There we go. One of the things that I love about the neural DSP guys is that this guy, these little guys down here, they're neural encoders. You turn it and it goes click, click, click. And when you do that, it moves in a very specific increment relationally to the interface it's controlling. It's still an encoder, but at least because it's neural and you get clicks, it's moving a very specific amount. And Nitin, you touched on something. One of the things that's not on the list but is on the list is, and I didn't get a chance to do this, and so again, this is where this little guy, a series of videos and things we're going to share here on the channel. It's like, which form factor, what is the difference between these guys? And I need to do a little bit of hard research and make sure the things that I think are the difference versus the factual difference. And then in turn craft both a live stream and probably a YouTube video around, okay, here's the key differences, and this is where this will potentially benefit you as an end user. The other thing about this unit, though I can't see it, I actually have the I'm going to forget the call letters. This is the FM3, that's the FM9. I've got their little kind of standalone controller as well, so kind of the two of those together kind of equal an FM9 when you kind of put them side by side. And so the ability to have kind of an expansion set of foot switches means that you can work with the FM3. So I've got to then take a look at the architecture of the FM3 Turbo compared to the FM9 Turbo and just kind of go, what's the difference, so on and so forth. Same thing with the VP4. All that to say, as we're looking at these different types of prerequisites, Sean, good morning, my friend. What are the things that we're looking for in the form factor? How much do we need extra foot switches? What do we need those switches to be able to do? For example, the nanocortex. It's got and I think some of these things will change in the future, but it's got fixed effects that you get what you get, and that's it. The ability to use the larger quad cortex doesn't have those limitations, but it's larger, has a wall wart, and can't be. This guy right here, you can actually, though it's not connected, you can actually power that with a battery, versus the quad cortex takes an actual wall wart or a crap ton of battery power. I've actually powered it with a battery, but it is it's a hungry little sucker. All that to say, what you touched on, Nitin, which I really applaud and commend, is what are the things that we want to have at our fingertips? A neural encoder allows us to feel the clicks as opposed to like, oh, too much, too little. I hate working with this. It's a really clunky methodology. I've done some basic research. This, of course, is Sonia's device. It's always the good news is that my memory was getting a little bit worse for a while. It's better, but oh right, it's the fulcrum. So this is a two-plane expression pedal. I did some research that I didn't find the answer for. What I really was hoping to be able to do was to control my DAW and use this as an effects expression pedal for my DAW. To the best of my knowledge, I can't do that yet, which is too bad because you can write automation and you can write it from a fader. So it seems logical that you could use some sort of expression-driven automation. It seems like a logical thing that they would be able to build into it, but it's not necessarily common usage. In any case, that guy is a very convenient way to have that control either at your feet. Ideally, I want to use it as a mouse on my desktop because to me, it's like, oh, this is so cool. The point being is, what are the features that you want? And, kind of going, okay, here's what this has got. This is where I think this works out really well. The Nano Cortex, where it's great, is on a board with other things. If you want to use your favorite Strymon delay and reverb, have at it. So the idea is how much you're using it as a core piece, or how much you're using it as your kind of your main go-to bit of business. All right. The interesting thing is the Mark of the Unicorn / Motu. The guy that DP, for those of you who speak that, Digital Performer, was their software. The last album that I made in 20-ish years ago was done. The guy that mixed it was a DP fanatic. I think we ended up importing all my stems into DP. And he loved the Motu stuff. And people do love it. So there's that. Do I own a Fender Tone Master Pro? That's a great question. If you do, one day would you make a video about how the Mesa Boogie Mark II C Plus they have modeled and how would it sound good for us knuckleheads? Knucklehead included. So I do not have the Tone Master Pro. And that is something that of many wrongs in the world needs to be righted. I can tell you that I think I'm a couple steps closer to getting kind of the keys to the kingdom for all the Tonex stuff. Now, that was not the answer you were looking for. However, you've lit a fire, and at NAMM, as you may or may not have known, I did a presentation for the House of Worship where Alan Abbasi and Stephen Taylor from Fender were on that panel along with Chris Rocha representing the Gretsch folks with the signature Gretsch. And a couple nights before, I got a chance to go by the Fender booth and see all the new gear they've got. And they've got a bunch of really cool new gear. A bunch of it's manufactured in Indonesia, which I'm a big fan of Indonesian manufacturing, at a very low price point, super high quality. They're crushing it. So I've got to kind of reach out to my contact, Alex, at Fender and just go, hey, can you send us along? And I can reach out to Steve and say, hey, it would be really cool for me to have the Tone Master. And you, my friend, are my tipping point. Actually, what I'm hoping to get is not only the Tone Master, but also the two, not just one, but they have FR. I think they have a pair or one, but for me, it's always a pair. I'm a stereo guy of 10-inch speakers and 12s. If you're looking for advice, always go with a 12 because it's organically a little bit more guitar. Not that a Super Reverb doesn't have 10s in it, but if you look at the majority of everything you can see that's got a speaker in it, it's got a 12. All right, good morning, my friend, the Tundra. I have the quad for my church gigs, directed into the big PA. Do you think it's worth getting the MIDI? I'm thinking of selling my TMP or Fractal. I keep them for backup. I only need one. So this and Tonex see if I can say this the right way. My live rig, for the vast majority of everything that I've done in the process of the preparing to go out and start touring again, and going out and doing micro tours, has either been the FM9 or the Axe FX3. simply because all the stuff that I talk about, these are the sounds that I use in the studio on the round trip, I haven't actually started taking all of that gobbledygook, because that's a lot of stuff. Short version. The more stuff you've got on the board, and it's bouncing around in the back of the minivan, and you pull it out, and all of a sudden, something's not working. There's a lot more stuff to go through and go, where is my fault? Probably, and there was going to be a piece 5-minute pedal board. So one of the other things on my list that will be a regular feature is, what did I learn this week? And generally speaking, it's going to be a little bit more orderly, but part of this is disorderly because I'm guilty of disorderly conduct. The whole thing of the 5-minute pedal board was that when I'm getting ready to go out of town, I'll make a little list of all the things that I need to take with me in the back of my head. So I went to my Wednesday night acoustic guitar gig. That was like, you really should make a list. I'm like, oh no. I know I need 2 power cords. I need 2 instrument cables. I need some patch cables. I need a compressor and a looper. And because of where they set me up, I don't need a junction box. Pre-Christmas, it was pre-Super Bowl party. They got me in a different room in a different corner, and lo and behold, there's no power there. They bring in an extension cord, but I got 1 cable. It's just me and the amp. Now, as it turns out, on top of that, I forgot my second audio cable. If I had made my list and actually gone down the checkbox of the list, I probably would have, 1, remembered my second audio cable, and 2, bring a junction box just in case. What did I learn? It ties into this. One of the things that I did at NAMM was I taught this thing on the House of Worship on raising up sound teams and worship teams, and also one on how to build a better sound team and how to get them ready for stuff. This, whether you play at church or not, it doesn't matter. This is the equivalent of my travel go bag. Why does this matter? Because if I end up on the gig, extra set of in-ear monitors and an extra little 1/8-inch, 1/4-inch adapter, you never know when you're going to need to bundle some cables together. Boom. You never know when you're going to need to tape something down or label something. And if you're going to need to label something, you're probably going to need some sort of silver Sharpie so you can see it. So the idea, and then you've got to have your batteries, so keep your batteries in a battery protector so they don't get hosed. There's more stuff in here than I got time to go through, but the idea, I am Mr. Overly Prepared, and when I show up, probably not a good idea to leave that drive in here, but when I show up, I usually have more stuff than I'm going to need just in case. And when I don't, I really feel it. By the way, those of you that kind of are somewhere where you need to mark up stuff on charts, Sharpie and multiple pencils with erasers, thank me later. These sorts of tools of preparedness, extra tuner, will just save you from walking in like I did on Wednesday, and I'm all excited. I've got my looper. I'm thinking I'm going to be preparing for this show, all the things that I learned about using looper, and I get down to I don't have a second audio cable. There's a whole series of things that happen when you don't plan well. What did I learn? I learned the same lesson the hard way, which is flip and plan it, Doppler. All right, getting back to this. The idea is strategically, I love the fractal universe for so many reasons. The fidelity is great. The challenge that I've got is because in the DAW, I'm doing so much sound design now. As I get ready to this next phase of what I'm doing as a professional musician, it's time to get very serious about what I do sonically. That is to say, it's not a matter of just having a great sound out of the amp. There's sound design things that I'm doing now. As I'm picking shorter delays for certain things and longer delays for other things. As people get used to hearing an album as it comes out, they will wonder, is he going to do all those things that were there that kind of make each one of the parts unique sonically? In so doing, the choices that get made become a little bit more complicated. Do I learn to create the sounds that I do with my UA gear inside Fractal? Not sure. As we begin to look at the things that the Fractal gear does, if you look at Satriani, Vi, and Petrucci, they all use the time-based stuff in the Fractal, and they all use regular amps. There is a world of capture going on inside the Nanocortex and the Tonex that it's a paradigm shift. It's small and it's great. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it's small, fits on your pedal board, and it's great. You can walk onto a plane with it. It's a paradigm shift. And this head replaced my Mark 525, which is basically my fly rig. I can literally get onto an airplane. This has cab clone IR on it, so I've got better output options on this. But I can put this in a little suitcase and roll it onto the plane. I can go into any gig because I'm a Boogie endorser. I can either through Mesa Boogie if I'm in a major city, or I start in a major city getting a backline company that Mesa Boogie will supply a cabinet or cabinets for. I'm good to go. Or, a larger heads like we did on this last video shoot. The point being is like thinking about what happens when you have to go and take that show on the road, the decisions you need to make. The small is going to be a really big thing, and people increasingly, to your point and my answer, are going to have to go the convenience of having small and being able to control everything from a single button press that you could want to control. Again, the deficit of the UA pedals not having MIDI. It's going to be, that's where those two worlds are really going to clash. Your average person front of house probably can't hear the difference between a modeler and a tube amp. I think I can still feel the difference, but I haven't tried a blindfolded thing yet of capturing one of my favorite amps and it's sitting there back and forth. But there is a thing that happens in the midst of and that modelers just don't do. It's a tube. It's a living, breathing organism. It's a crystal chalice. But all of a sudden, you get rid of some of this stuff. Hang on, let me get rid of the fancy pants. There we go. And you replace that with a modeler, and you add a beautiful, sweet, sexy reverb and some delay. There is something that that little, you can hear the skin on my fingers. So if you replace that with a capture of that, it can't hear all those gradations. It does some of that stuff because it's kind of putting different impulses and different frequencies and whatnot. But that's the magic of a tube amp. That there's nothing. Am I pointing in the right direction? Yeah. It's a magical thing. It can't be imitated. So Sean, sorry, that was a really Rick Hunold. What's going on? So to the man that knows, if it sounds great and feels great, it sounds great and feels great. So this is, and to my point, is that this, especially if you start cloaking it in some sexy delay and reverb, sounds great and feels great. And it's this big, and you can kind of haul it around. We're at a place now where that little bit of business versus all of this stuff, they're close enough sonically and emotively that the nuance around. I put that with some reverb on that little bit and put a little delay on it. And I swap out the tube amp for some sort of capture. All that other bell and whistle stuff do a lot to mask the difference between the two of them. So the deal is I'm a tube amp guy. I love what tube amps do because they inform my fingers about decisions I'm going to make. I think one of my boogie guys, we have this conversation about, John Petrucci says he's playing the amp, and really, you don't play a model the same way you kind of have to. A little B flat. There's a uniqueness about a tube amp that creatively, and it may be purely psychological, but it's not, where you're having an interaction, that cable's going down into that thing, and they're having a conversation that with your fingers and your ears, where there's something that's happening. I mean, I think we can safely say that there is a difference between modeling and a tube amp. It just is. The modeling stuff is so good that for most people, it's at a point now, which form factors ultimately serves them. For me, I'll roll that guy onto an airplane and a little carry-on every time because that's where I live. But that's where I live. It may not be where you live. And this technology is getting so good at this point that it's just that great. Will Thomas, welcome. Hold on. There we go. There we go. And and having the Cab Clone IR, it's just such a game changer. Albert, like you and I have had this conversation. Boy, we wish we had MIDI on this guy, but you got to take it. Yes. Rick noted. If it's good, it's good. I think I may need to update the Fractal Turbo. It has been over a year since I used it. I know there have been some updates to the rigs. I agree on the amp. Still using the 65 Deluxe in the clubs. There you go. You don't need to know why. It's just a vibe, and you go with the vibe. So, and this is the thing. And by the way, I play at church. I'm not in people's face about it because that's not my vibe. I plug into a Helix 99.9% of the time. I don't change anything. And it's the vibe I'm going for. It's the perfect vehicle. I literally kind of get it out on a Sunday morning. I plug it in, and it lives in the Helix backpack, which, by the way, if you own a Helix and you don't have the Helix backpack, just buy one. Quick aside, jumping around. Hang on. Wait. How about that? Yes and amen. Awesome. That is great to hear. I will say this as long as we're there. I actually have a prayer list, and I'd gotten a little lax in my prayer list activity. And the funny thing is, Tom, I was going back on that list. I went back to it this week and kind of went, all these people I hadn't prayed for a while. And I was like, oh, so that's excellent news. Thank you for that. Whew. Yes and amen. Man, I got to tell you, it's quite a journey that people go through. Oh, that's awesome. It's a funny thing. It's the last thing I'm going to say about this, is that I know a lot of people aren't believers, and I don't, that's not a thing for me. But one of my favorite things is that pretty much just about everybody that I've said, can I pray for you or can I keep you in my prayers? Pretty much people are always like, yeah, which is one of my favorite things. So, love you too. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Woo! Okay. Okay. So, hey, Dr. Phil, what's going on, my man? Excellent. Great to see you. So, we generally are probably in the darker roast end of things. But what is it? This is, yeah, there you go, dark. And the Philly coffee, the New Orleans coffee is great. Okay, so I have a problem, and I'm going to share my problem with you. So this is my small pedal board, and right now things are, a little tight in the Doppler world in terms of how we're spending money. It's totally cool. It's a season. So I can't just march out and buy another pedal train board. So that goes back and forth between my small gig board and my acoustic gig board. So that's kind of where this 5-minute pedal board, this genius idea I had that I was going to have for today's show, I was going to incorporate the looper and, what I pull on and put off and just talk about that. But one of the things that my suggestion for you is, number one, there are enough different little rigs that I use. One of the problems that I've had is I have a tendency to not have stuff live in a grab and go place. The rack ends, I know where they are now, but the last time I went to find them, the rack ends for those guys, still didn't find them. So literally when I went down to Los Angeles, I had a front on the front of that and didn't find the back part of it. Have places, especially, I don't use it that often, but at some point I got to find it. Have a place where things live. As it pertains to your digital files, you've heard me talk about this before. You heard me talk about it again. A treasure map. I love using notes in the Mac world because they, all right, 15-minute fundamentals. You actually can't see it. There we go. So everything lives on all my computers in here simultaneously. So although in many ways I prefer to document things in the analog world because it's good to be able to kind of sit in the kitchen table and make little notes like I did with this. And this is not always the best read because you have to kind of start scrolling because of the keyboard, virtual or otherwise. Having a treasure map, especially as you start working on a recording project, what drive something lives on or gets moved to or gets copied to, or what folder or subfolder it lives on your hard drive. With me, one of the things I'm doing, I live by Dropbox. I take stuff offline. It lives in the cloud. But without a record of which folder or subfolder it lived on my hard drive, when I send it off to the cloud, it becomes a little bit out of sight, out of mind. And you can be like, what folder was that in? Sometimes searching on the Mac finds everything. Sometimes it doesn't. So just something to keep in mind. That way you get to go, hey, this is the song. This is where all the stuff lives. Also a good idea inside there is you've got a couple of mixes that you really like, a bounce of that. Put a Dropbox link to that. So even if that folder gets moved to the cloud exclusively, you have the ability with that Dropbox link. It is actually a cloud link, ideally for a folder that's synced locally on your machine, but really lives in the cloud and locally on your machine. Okay. I take it that's Todd Tilden right there, my man. What's going on? Great to see you. Beat down in the house. Use tags, huh? All sorts of smart stuff that I don't do. That is probably So here's one of the other challenges that I get to. I won't bother doing it, but if I search Swagger, which is the name of the album and the name of this song right here, right? And this little guy. You. I would tag that thing to death. However, that's a great idea. Thank you for that. Wise counsel. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's 10:54. I have gone over the majority of things that are on my list to go over. I really so appreciate your hanging out. I am so excited about all the things that I'm working on and be able to share them with this community. I have a last question. So my student Shane, as I've been talking about this 15-minute fundamentals thing, he commented that having a community where people can kind of hold each other accountable and actually come together to do that. As I put together this course material for those of you that would journey on it, or even if you don't, feedback, my first thought was to do it as a Facebook community for 15-minute fundamentals and Doppler lessons. Melissa pointed out, and Kajabi is the CMS, content management system, or you could also say course management system that I'm going to be using for that. And invariably, they have a community feature that's kind of, for one, behind the paywall, and two, kind of built into there so you can kind of migrate between the content and the community in one fell swoop. I'm kind of curious. My guess is, Nitin, you have some very clear ideas on this. I like the idea of it being on Facebook because it means when people are being social, they can be social and they can kind of navigate between the social expression of what they're doing on Facebook and the community expression around the lesson side. However, because of the deep nested nature of using a Kajabi community around the content, one could argue that there's benefits of nesting in whatever community Kajabi has. And because I did this Sweetwater Helix for House of Worship, I am dedicated financially to maintaining that account in Kajabi, and Kajabi is my course management system of choice because it's great, and especially at the time that I started using it, the other systems were not as robust. It is in no way shape cheap, but it's a great course system. So I'm curious if anybody has any feedback for a community, any preference on whether kind of keep it Facebook separate from the curriculum or have it nested with the curriculum. Any preference, thought, feedback? Bueller? With great pleasure, Sean. Always a pleasure to see you, my friend. All right. Well, I guess for now I will have... there we go. Yeah, Griffin, so the funny thing is that is what Melissa said. She always says, see, somebody else has to say it for you to agree with it. But it seems to make a lot of sense. Yeah, okay, there we go. Thank you. I appreciate, and I know there's a little bit of a delay. The feedback is very valuable and important. The neat thing is I am working, to tell you the truth, I'm not really, I'm spending a lot of time and energy I'm actually documenting the different exercises and how many seconds they take, so I can put together the 15-minute workouts. And they're basically, as of right now, each one of the kind of the 7 15-minute workouts is probably going to have 3-ish layers. Not necessarily beginner, intermediate, advanced, but just layers. As you kind of get to a certain point, you'll work through and get to whatever tempo or subdivision. Then kind of go, well, how can I make this more challenging, or how can I use it to add some additional. For example, a little earlier in the show, that's a good way to wrap. We did this little bit of business right here, where we took this, and as we, and if we were to think about that as kind of, I'm on the A string. Sorry, I'm at A. I'm on the E string at A. That's I'm thinking about my starting note as kind of the basis of this, or the lowest bit of this. That is A. And so, as much as I'm starting with a tap, there's a lot of A, D, G, C, E, and A going on. So I'm thinking of this as A, D, G, C, E, A. Now on the way down, interestingly enough, because and there's something I talk about in terms of waterfall motion. And as much as this going, sorry, there's a little 3-way sequence. It ends with a versus a. That is, say, the waterfall motion, even though it goes tap, lower, middle, it doesn't go tap, middle, lower. It's moving in a waterfall motion going that way. And even though going, it's effectively what's happening on the way down. So then being able to go, okay, well, if this is A, C, that's D, G, D, no, just right, D, G, E, C, G, D. So the idea is then you're kind of thinking about your starting notes ascending and descending. So in the midst of doing that, you get really comfortable. Notice that I wasn't great calling those out the first time, but as you get used to just being able to call them out, it becomes part of the process. And then the value of that is it enables you to really have a connectedness rather than just kind of being dots and kind of shapes on the page. You really kind of go A, D, so A, D, G, C, E, A, and you really have a connectedness. The reason that's valuable is if you think about your tonic chord, that's going to be an A minor because I'm playing it at A. Those notes are going to be A, C, E, A, C, E, A, C, E. So as you're thinking about wheedly, wheedly, or you start thinking about those A's, C's, and E's. And because you've gotten used to going A, D, G, C, E, A, you're that much more comfortable with being able to identify those notes because you've gotten comfortable with identifying those notes. So that sort of stuff for me is as you kind of get layers deeper, it helps people develop a greater level of connectedness with the instrument. The shapes are a huge part of the way I'm going to approach this. I'm 99.9% positive there's going to be no tab. Why? I was looking at another teacher's course material. They've got the little tab going across the bottom. It's like little marching ants. And you're kind of like, literally, because there's about 2 bars. So to be able to navigate that, and it's very cute to have it on screen. But the great thing about, when we think about the pentatonic, I don't know about you, but I think about it as a shape. then in turn to be able to populate that shape with things like 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1, flat 4, 5, flat 7, 1, flat 3, and A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, E, G, A, C. Note names means we can then layer other things on top of the shape and have them intermingle. But the shape-based nature of these things, when you think about a chord shape, there's a chord melody course that I signed up because I'm first of all studying what other teachers are doing, seeing what people that are doing works really well, also seeing as a student what works for me, and all the chords are written in music notation. My music notation is not good. Never was something that I had a great active need to develop. Perhaps that will change in time. But I was really hoping there would be chord diagrams. There aren't. It will help me actually be able to identify the chord tones on the music notation, and they actually do this thing where they slow each of the progressions down to 40 BPM, so I can see the chord shapes and it's shot well. But I really wish there were chord diagrams because for most of us, the shape-based nature of the guitar, I don't think of this as G. Well, I do think of this as G, D, G, B, D, G, and I do think of this as A, E, A, C sharp, E, A, and B, F sharp, D. Sorry, B, F sharp, B, D sharp, F sharp, B. But I think of this as a shape, and then I learned to layer that other stuff on top of there. All right. In any case, thank you. Really appreciate the feedback. Excellent. No, that's great to know. Griffin, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. And all right, thank you for that. Have a great one. Much love. Tom, yes and amen. Friends, family, patriots, and anybody from the 51st state. Sorry, I couldn't resist. At NAMM, I had the most fun every time I ran into somebody from Canada. It's like, oh, 51st state. We love our Canadian brothers and sisters and our Latin American brothers and sisters because collectively we are the Americas. So in any case, I am very happy to be a Californian, but I am very thankful that of all the continents that I could live in, I live in this one. Much love to each of you. Thank you so much. What a privilege to serve this community. It's such a joy and so much fun. And today was really a lot of fun. So thanks for that. I'll see you next Saturday. Thanks again. Cheers for now.